Hello everyone, today's a big video, so let's not waste any time. The first mode is called Single Take and it's the big new feature that Samsung is marketing. It's a good idea but bad execution, and unfortunately this phone has a lot of those. It shoots a clip of up to 9 seconds and then gives you a bunch of random stuff like photos with different filters, fast forward versions of the video, boomerang effect. I've seen a lot of reviewers saying it uses every camera and then picks the best angles. But it doesn't, and if you had used it, you know it doesn't. This mode would have been great if all it did was shooting a small video clip with every camera. But it only uses the main camera. In all the tests, it gives me the same focal lengths in every option. All this is doing is shooting a video and then picks a random frame from that video, gives you a black and white and heavy filtered version of that frame, fast forward, boomerang, and the video itself. I don't know, it's pretty lame. Maybe because I was expecting the phone to use every camera like early reviewers said. I just wasn't impressed by this. Next we have photo. Here on the left we have the flash, timer. Here is where you pick different aspect ratios and the 108 megapixels mode. Full is the phone screen aspect ratio, so 20:9. 1:1 is a square, 16:9 is the standard for video, and 4:3 is the standard for photos. And lastly, the 108 megapixels mode. In normal mode it shoots 12 megapixels photos. To put in comparison, professional DSLRs have between 20 to 30 megapixels sensor. So this should be much better than a DSLR, right? Not even close, and I'll explain why in a minute. At first, you won't see much difference between the normal mode and the 100 megapixels mode. And that's because screen resolutions are much lower than any of this. If you have a 1080p monitor, it has a 2 megapixels resolution, so it's hard to see any difference in 12, 40 or 100 megapixels. Only when you start zooming is where you see the difference. The higher resolution obviously retains a lot more detail. You can see here in the curtain, it retains all the textures while the normal photo is all mushy. But there's another thing. The normal photo is using a really heavy sharpening filter, while the 100 megapixels mode is bypassing it. You can see it as this dark outline in everything. That's the sharpening filter. Once you notice, it's super ugly to look at, and both the wide and telephoto have this, but it's much stronger on the main camera. However, keep in mind that this is just pixel peeping. It's such a small difference when looking at them at full size, but a huge difference in file size. This is 3 megabytes and this is 20 megabytes. You can have 6 of these for each one of these. Is it worth it? Well, that's up to you. You can have natural shallow depth of field if you shoot something really close to the camera. But even the S9 did that, and you could be much closer. When I read that the sensor is 3 times bigger than previous models, I thought we'd finally have better shallow depth of field on a phone. But it's about the same, since the bigger size is outbalanced by the smaller aperture, so that leaves us around the same level. Samsung is known for adding a ton of saturation to the photos, but they toned it down. Photos produce more realistic and natural colors compared with previous models. Overall, it's a flagship camera. It's good, but not as insane as you'd expect from a phone with these specs. Next we have motion photo. This is buffering a video, so when you take a photo, it records the last couple seconds before that photo. It's a good mode, but it's not new and it's been around for a while. Here is where you pick the filters. You have a bunch of them, you can pick the intensity, and you can download more if you want. My Filters lets you pick a photo and save it as a filter. For example, you find a photo with a pretty cool filter you like, save it, bring it here, the phone scans the photo and records the filter. Now you can use it too. It works for video too, so everything is a free LUT. Beauty mode has been the same for ages. Smoothness, tone, jawline and eye size. Nothing new here. This blue icon is the scene optimizer. It detects what you're trying to shoot and makes little adjustments to contrast, brightness, stuff like that. You can turn it off if you want. In video mode, you can only shoot 60 frames per second with the main camera. That was shocking for me. Also, if you use super steady, you can't use flash. What gives? Let's test super steady outside. This is me just walking around. It's smooth, but there's definitely a drop in quality and some occasional problems with the stabilization. You can notice here at this entrance something weird going on. I wouldn't use this. I think the optical stabilization does a good job. In fact, most of the shots you'll see in this video were just handheld without the super steady on. Super steady is limited to 1080p and a really low quality 1080p. So I don't think the sacrifice in quality is worth the extra smoothness. Here I'm using a gimbal, the Osmo Mobile 2 with the super steady on for that double smoothness. You'll see the lens icon indicating you can use the wide angle and the standard, but it's a lie. It's the same camera with just digital zoom. And if the quality was bad already, boy oh boy, it's like zooming on a piece of shit. Back inside, here is where you pick the aspect ratios and the 8K mode. Again, full is 20:9, 1:1, 16:9, and get ready for 8K video shot on a phone. It's a bit meh. A lot of reviewers were saying that it's insane that a phone can shoot 8K, but in a way, it kind of isn't. 8K has a huge crop and it's limited to 24 FPS. This is 8K without rescaling, so at native resolution, and this is 4K cropped to 200%. Now you tell me what's the advantage of having this type of 8K in a phone, because I'm about to tell you all the disadvantages of having 8K in a phone. It's just spitting high numbers that look good on paper without any regard for quality. 108 megapixels, 100 times zoom, 8K video. This phone has the biggest camera sensor ever in a smartphone. 3 times bigger than the previous model, almost the same size as the Sony RX100. If you don't know, big sensor good, small sensor bad. A big sensor allows more light to come in, so it gives you better low light shots and a nice shallow depth of field. But all of that is ruined by the 108 megapixels gimmick. Turning 9 pixels into 1 is not the same as having 1 large pixel. What matters the most is the pixel size, not the pixel count. That's the point of having a larger sensor, having bigger pixels, not having more pixels. Like I was saying, a professional DSLR like the Canon 1DX that costs over $5,000 has a 20 megapixel sensor, and each pixel is 6.91 micrometers. And this is a photo camera, because video cameras will have even less than that. If it's a 4K camera, it has a 8 megapixel sensor. If it's a normal HD camera, it has a 2 megapixel sensor. I'm saying this to help you understand how stupid this is. In the professional camera industry, no one is pushing for 100 megapixel sensor. It's all about the size of each pixel. In the official site, it says the pixel is 0.8 micrometers, turning into 2.4 at 12 megapixels. It doesn't work like that. That's not the same thing. Samsung made a sensor 3 times bigger than the competition. If they kept it at 12 megapixels, it would indeed have pixels 2.4 micrometers in size. And it would have been insane. No other phone would even come close. But the reason the S20 Ultra doesn't look that much better in camera comparisons is because the sensor was murdered with the extra megapixels. It's like Samsung is trying to win a race that doesn't exist. If they had skipped this 108 megapixels nonsense, we wouldn't have 8K video, but we would have the best smartphone camera ever by far. Instead, we have this small incremental step from last year. It's almost like they are waiting to come up with a crazy idea and bring a 36 megapixel sensor to the Note series, which still allows to have 8K video without a massive crop, and finally reap the benefits of having a larger sensor. Time will tell. So, is 8K video on a smartphone insane? No. It's the reason we don't have a normal 12 megapixels, almost 1-inch sensor on a smartphone. That would be insane. This is just a gimmick to look good on paper. After my megapixel rant, you must be thinking that the camera sucks, but the camera is flagship level. It's on par or slightly better than other flagships like the iPhone 11. And I guess that's the problem. You're paying a huge premium for something that's not that much better from what's already out there. I guess the improvement is on the wide and telephoto lens. This is where other phones' quality drop a lot, but in this phone, the other lenses are on par with the main camera. I already did a review on the telephoto lens, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. The main points are 100 times is a gimmick, borderline useless. 4x is the real optical zoom. The zoom looks pretty good from 10 to 10x, with 4 being perfect. You can't have manual control of this lens, and it's frustrating to try focusing on something really far. News update, I was able to use the clip-on lens with the telephoto this last full moon. The focus is not perfect, but that's as good as it gets. Without manual focus, you have to rely on the autofocus, and the phone just refuses to focus the moon. Something easily fixed with a software update, but don't count on it. And that's it. I already did a video about this, let's move on. Clicking more shows you the rest of the modes. Pro mode gives you full manual control over the main camera only. Really disappointing. You can control the white balance, ISO, shutter speed, focus and color profile like you would in a real DSLR. Also in this mode and only in this mode you can shoot photos in RAW. So this is good, this is it. Just allow us to control the other lens too and I won't be that disappointed. Next is Panorama. There's not much to say. You pan the phone around and it gives you a super wide photo. You can use the wide lens or the standard and that's it. It's a super high resolution photo so you can really zoom in and still have a ton of detail. Next mode is called Food. You control the color temperature and it blurs the photo around the circle. You can make the circle bigger or reposition, but overall, this is a really silly excuse of a mode. What if I have a rectangle dish, huh? You have to make a new mode called Food Square or something, like stop discriminating. Night mode is either pretty good or absolutely disgusting depending on how much you like HDR photography. This is the night mode on, this is the normal mode, and this is how it actually looked like being there. So it's creating a ton of light where there is none. It's amazing all this detail in the grass, all these different patches of color, and this is all handheld by the way. I'm noticing now, the camera is even seeing stars that I'm pretty sure weren't there, so this is all very impressive. This is the wide lens, standard, and telephoto. It certainly has that HDR look to it, love it or hate it. I think it's very impressive. All the detail I was able to pull from the pitch black, completely handheld, so night mode gets an upvote. I was really excited about live focus and it's okay but could be better. With the inclusion of a depth sensor, you'd think Samsung would be able to emulate shallow depth of field properly. But nope, it blurs everything around you with no regard to depth. You see, in a real camera, stuff gets gradually out of focus. It doesn't blur a silhouette around you. I just don't get it. You have the hardware, but it's like you're not even using it. Don't blur stuff that's at the same distance from the camera as the subject. Is it that hard? The depth camera can see up to 3 meters. Create a depth map. Don't blur those areas. It's really easy. But the fact that the front camera works exactly the same as the rear proves that Samsung is probably not even using the depth camera for realistic shallow depth of field. It's all 100% software. With that said, as long as you don't have anything right next to you, it should look okay. The edge detection is not very good, but it's passable. It gives you a couple of different types of blur, and this setting turns everything into black and white except you. Live focus video is similar but with less types of blur. Only normal blur, big circles, which is trying to simulate the type of blur you get in a full frame camera, black and white, and this old VHS/fake 3D effect. It's cool. So this is a vlog test with the front camera. I'm using wireless microphone, and this is the quality you can expect from the front camera with the live focus feature. It's actually passable as a DSLR, but if you change it to blur, it's just more realistic. Here's with blur, here's the normal camera. As you can see, everything in focus, really sharp, not very pretty or cinematic. So if you bump the blur effect, it actually simulates a bigger sensor and a shallow depth of field, as long as you have nothing next to you in your plane. Well, I'm completely out of focus now. As long as there's nothing next to you, it fakes a bigger sensor, much better. The big circles, it's kinda like overkill, especially like this. Like, why would you use this? As long like you enter in a room full of dicks and you have to blur out everything. That's the only use for this mode. Just checking the other ones. Oh, this is an abandoned railroad, don't worry. It's here for people to walk on it. So yeah, this is the front camera quality, and let's check the back camera. This is using the back camera. Tell me if you see any difference, because I'm just recording here, I have no idea. So this is with the big circles option on level 2. This is blur at level 7. Should look good, both should look good at this level. And yep, this is how vlogging on this phone should look like. So I noticed the video was really shaky, so now I'm using the DJI Osmo 2 and should be better. I'm using the front camera now, but the audio is coming from the phone, not the microphone anymore. So the audio should be worse, but the video should be better. I hope this is using the blur at level 7, and this is big circles at level 2. Yeah, really too strong. Okay. Big circles at level 1. Tell me what do you think. As long as there's nothing on your line, like it looks real. But that's the thing, if you go against the wall, like the wall should be in focus. The wall should be in focus, but it's out of focus. That's my biggest problem with this, because it shouldn't be like this. It has a depth sensor, not this one. Like the back camera has a depth sensor, but it works the same. It just blurs everything around you equally with no regard to depth. And yeah, but like this it works. Now I'm using the back camera with the blur at 7, and again should look more stable. Which camera do I have to look? This one. It should look more stable and better. And to prove my point, once again, let me change this to blur, to big circles, level 2. And if I go against the wall, change. If I go against the wall, this shouldn't be blurred like crazy, like it is. But my point is, just for walking around, it looks convincing. Maybe not on this setting, like just maybe at level 1. It looks really convincing for a smartphone, so I think that's pretty good. And let's move on. Pro Video is the same as Pro Photo, but you can only change the color profile in HD, and again, only control the main camera. Super slow motion is still really low quality. It records 1 second at 480 fps at 720p. And then the phone interpolates the frames to 960. It means that between each real frame, the phone puts a new ghost frame blending the two. It's funny because the S20 and the S20 Plus record real 960 fps, so in this case you are paying more for less. But it's not like it matters when the quality is this low. But it's nice a phone can do this. Watching the videos on the phone don't look that bad, only when watching in a big screen the lack of quality becomes too much. Slow motion is much more acceptable. It shoots without any time limit, full HD at 240 fps I believe. And with sound, a lot of cameras don't record sound when shooting slow motion, so it was a good surprise. The quality is just so much better and it still slows down everything a considerable amount. So I'd say this is much more useful than interlaced 960 fps 720p footage. Hyperlapse. You can use Super Steady. This was shot with Super Steady on. It gives you a 1080p file and there's not much to say, it's a time lapse. You pick how much you want to speed up, 4, 8, 16, 32 or 64 times. There's also the option for a night lapse. It leaves the shutter open for longer so you can have light streaks. And that's it. Lastly, we have the AR zone. AR Emoji Camera. Welcome to the Cringe Fest. Yeah, this is my emoji according to Samsung. So, yep. You can pick other. This is like face rig, but a really retarded version of face rig. I already made a video about AR Doodle. In a few words, it's like tilt brush for VR but with your phone. There's a lot of different brushes with cool effects. It's a pretty fun mode to mess around. AR Emoji Studio is where you can design your own clothes. It's just, yep. AR Emoji Stickers. These are all automatic. When you create your emoji, you can edit and add stuff. Deco Pic. It's like those Facebook stuff. There's a lot of them. .3D Scan is pretty cool. It allows you to create a 3D model that you can import into a real 3D program. It's an OBJ file in case you're wondering, so it's supported by almost everything. You can't scan everything though. Reflective or transparent objects are a no-no, and stuff with too much detail also fails. Even stuff that looks basic fails. I've had the most luck with toys. You can also 3D scan people with incredible high details, so yep, cool stuff. Quick measure. Barely works, just overall super inaccurate. When it detects a rectangle or a circle, it does this, but it's just super buggy, forget about it. Makeup. There's a lot of apps like this. and this one is not the best. This mode is just a big ad for cosmetic brands. Every option you pick here is tied to a real product. So after you pick everything you like, when you take a photo, it will show you the list of all the products used. You can't save your own looks, and the app bugged a couple of times, so I had to start again from zero. There are much better apps out there if you are into this type of stuff. Next is styling, and it's just another ad. This one by Ray-Ban. It's just a bunch of glasses you can try. Really lame stuff. Picture link is a cool idea, but not very useful. You take a photo of a photo, and you can link videos, text, music, a lot of stuff to it. So when you point a camera to that photo, it starts playing wherever you linked. This is probably cool if you have a wall full of photos and you link a video or a song to each memory. But all the media has to be on your phone, and the videos are limited to 10 seconds or something like that. It's cool if you have someone visiting and you want to show off your phone, but on your own, I just don't think it's very useful. You need to create links for every photo, and then every time you want to relive your memories, you have to go to wherever the photos are, use this app, and hold the phone at an awkward position to watch a 10 seconds video that's on your phone. Or you can just open the gallery instead. It's a cool idea, but I doubt people will give it much use. And lastly, Home Decor. It's another ad, this time by Wayfair. It's just a handful of 3D models you can place in your room to see how they look. There's really not much to choose from, but each model looks good, with nice reflections and detail. But the app is super buggy, and with so little to choose from, this is pretty useless. And that's it. This is every mode the Samsung S20 Ultra comes with. Overall, I'm pretty disappointed. There's nothing here that justifies the price tag. This phone has so much potential, but it's being held back by its software. After using it extensively for almost 3 weeks, I can't in any way recommend this phone for its camera capabilities. It's really just a small step up when they market it as a giant leap. I'll be doing a full review about using the phone, as a phone, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching and have a great day.